It was like living as a ghost. No one would have said that. If they knew me, they would have thought, oh, I was a functional ghost. But inside me, I knew that there were certain plugs that weren't plugged in.
When I look at myself, there are parts where I feel like everybody look at me in this perfect or whatever functional human being that's able to pay their bills on time. But inside of us, there's some void or emptiness inside of us that's waiting for us to discover. Come to the hard part. Today, I'm bringing in a healer who helps people to come to home to themselves, and also a teacher in Barbara Brennan School, a globally recognized 4-year school in energy healing. Welcome, Jen Polo.
Hey, Fiona. Thanks for having me here.
So, what has led you to the work that you do today?
That's a very long story. But I would say that if I had to kind of, put it into an easy story to tell, I would say that I spent a lot of time in my youth hiding who I was. And that led me to, have some problems and to feel disconnected from myself and to feel really like isolated on the inside. And so around the age of 30, I decided to try to figure out how to stop that feeling, how to fix it. At the time, that's what I thought it was. And so it led me into meditation, which led me into all sorts of modalities, group work, somatic work like core energetics. I can talk more about these if you want. Plant medicine, a lot of spiritual work came in. And eventually at that point, I started realizing like, oh, I feel like so full, so connected, so grounded, that I just felt like I was overflowing with love and I wanted to give it back. And so I started to really find pathways to become a healer, to do what I do now.
Wow. Is there a moment of time, because you mentioned that you tried a lot of modality, is there a moment in time that you feel like, oh, like which kind of modality is going to be a clear path for you?
I experimented so I'm 47 now. So 17, 18 years ago, I was experimenting with plant medicine, and I had a ceremony where it completely shattered what I thought I was and who I was. And in that ceremony, my hands were buzzing and I was doing things to my body that I didn't quite understand. And you have to understand, I come from a very kind of like basic, I'm the youngest of 4 kids of Italian descent. My mom was a nurse, my father a machinist. No one talked about energy work. We were salt of the earth, people that really, we liked to do our, work on the land, and we would have been considered, we still are considered a family with good energy. I guess that would be something someone might say, but the idea that you could lay on hands and work with people's energy fields was very far from my reality. So that particular medicine journey, I realized a lot about. I realized that there was so much about me that I didn't know that was completely overwhelming, that I was like, it shattered my idea or the paradigm of who I thought I was, my ego. And so from that moment forward, I became super thirsty to learn, what is the subtle energy body that I'm learning about? What is happening to my hands? Why can I feel things when I touch different parts of my body? I got into meditation very deeply. I started Googling, subtle energy bodies and a lot of those things, those kinds of Google searches, which grow, it brings, at that time, this was 2009, it brought back a lot of what I would have called flighty, floaty material. Like it didn't feel like I was like, I don't really believe this website.
Yeah.
So I started, that's how I learned about Barbara Brennan actually in her school. Cause I was like, oh, the school actually has like a container, a structure to it that feels like I'm not, I don't know, going crazy, maybe I think is a word to think of. Yeah.
Yeah, it is amazing school, but I'm gonna ask you more about it later. I was wondering about your journey after plant medicine, because a lot of people, even though they have plant medicine journey, it's not a lot of people would go ahead and become energy healer.
Hmm.
But how did that become for you? Did you actually experiment it on yourself?
Mm. So I would say that the fundamental issue that I had going into that ceremony was a lack of self-belief or confidence in who I was in the world. And that stems from a lot of ways in which I hid in my childhood. You know, I'm in a queer relationship. My gender is not like he, she, you know, lots of ways in which I couldn't be myself. And then that led me to really minimize myself and disconnect from myself. In that journey, I saw the depth of how much of what I would call a split. There's the me that is the almost like the cosmic self, you know, the biggest me, the highest self. And then there was this other part that was fearful and that had learned or been conditioned to be a certain kind of Jen so that the world would accept me. But it wasn't really who I was. It was all built on these foundations of fear. Like, if I act this way, I'll be accepted, but I don't know who I really am. So in that medicine journey, I saw how far those two things were apart, and it brought me to the truth of who I am. So I experienced the clarity. Once I got out of that journey, I was still me, this one over here.
Yeah.
Yeah, so this speaks to the struggle. Yeah, plant medicine isn't going to solve everything for you, but it can show you what's possible. So what it did was it like busted through my idea of what is true or what possible for me. And then I found myself back in my regular life, in my regular body, tempted to act the same way in every situation. And that became the actual struggle, is like, well, who is this person? Why do I act this way? How am I thinking about this? Why is this activating me and making me emotional? Or why am I pulling away in certain situations? And I started to really methodically work through my identity, you know? And I did a lot of things to work through it. And I had a lot of moments where I doubted myself greatly because that was the issue, right?
Yeah.
It was like, who do I think I am? I just knew stuff was happening with my hands. And then, you know, you go into this fantasy world. Oh my, I'm a great healer. But then you also go into this world. Well, maybe I am a healer. You know, maybe I'm still a human, a flawed human, but maybe I'm meant to do this. And what I saw in that journey and in subsequent many, many meditations and journeys and all sorts of tapping into behind the veil, let's say, is that I've lived many lives as a healer, you know, many, many, many lives. If you buy into that kind of thing, which I do,
I do as well.
we could go down the rabbit hole of space and time and all that, but
That is,
there there is information in my DNA, in who I am, in my soul, that made becoming a healer, being a helper on the path, something that was always part of my divine destiny in this life. And I started to believe that more and more as I worked through all of the misconceptions that I had taken on as a child. It was
Um,
hard.
yeah, I bet it was hard. I feel like a lot of great healers came from a place where they actually had a lot of trauma that I need to heal themselves to come from a place where you will be able to understand the people in that situation, like putting yourself into other people's shoes. I'm so applause for you having that courage and gone through that for all the healers as well. And for that first journey, you already realized that the path of healer, where was it along the way that you discovered?
So the medicine came to me very strongly, clairaudiently, and she took me. She was a she, the spirit of the plant, and she took me to a time when I was a lizard on her vine. And I was there. It wasn't like a visualization. I became a lizard on a plant, and I filled with so much joy just to be simple and living for what was true for me as this little creature. And she told me, she said, "You don't know who you are. You have forgotten." You know, like, she showed me, and there's a way in which plant medicine speaks where it's in riddles, but there was like a very clear showing that I was a healer, that I was meant to do this kind of work. Then she activated my palms. like all of this stuff, right? She was showing me all of these sort of codes. And when I came out of that, like I said, I did not believe it, but I was very curious. I had lots of questions. And it took me from the time that I had that ceremony to the time that I entered into the training at the Barbara Brennan School of Healing, which is where I really formally got trained. It was probably 6 years. So on that 6-year journey, I did healing touch. I did all sorts of things just to explore the possibility that I could potentially be a healer. I did a lot of personal work in groups. That was very helpful. Being seen and witnessed as who I am, that advanced my my consciousness in untold ways. So it was a struggle to believe it after that journey. It wasn't like I came out like a lion-hearted, brave heart person. I came out being like, I was high, and that's BS, you know?
Oh, you didn't believe it at the time?
That's what I would like say to myself. So there were two parts of me, right? There was the part that said that's BS, and then there was another part that knows what I felt, that knows what it felt like in me, and that couldn't deny the body stuff that was happening. I couldn't deny that my hands were bubbling, and so I said, okay, well, I'll just investigate. That's my nature, you know. I went to a journalism school to become an investigative reporter. That was my original career way back when I was in my 20s. So I have this part of me that always says, well, why? How? Why? How? I want to know.
Evidence.
Yeah, I want evidence. I'm now at a place where I don't need evidence anymore. In fact, evidence is now, there's a place where evidence is really important. And then there's a place where you need to let it all fall away because it's a way in which you poke holes in what's true for you.
Very true. Wow.
Does that make sense?
Wow.
Yeah.
It does. And within that 6 years, because I wanted for you to share a little bit more of that coming out from plant medicine into a journey where you feel like you're in a legit training school. Because I feel like a lot of people, we are still in a place where coming out from plant medicine, we know what we see, we know what we feel, but yet we are still quite yet confused because we're still on the other side of it. Like within these 6 years, was there any event or transformation thing that lead you more and more of breakthrough coming into finding out, oh, you wanted to go into the commitment of the school? Because to be honest, it's a 4-year commitment.
Yeah, it's a big commitment. Yes. Okay. So I mentioned I got very deeply into meditation. I didn't get trained in meditation. I just started sitting. And in those times that I was sitting, I would go for, anywhere from 40 minutes to an hour and a half. And what started to happen was I was being told, like I have a very clear audience. So I hear, I would start to be told, like all of these emotions would start to come up, and I learned to just let them come through. I have no idea why I'm crying. I have no idea why I feel what I feel. It doesn't matter why, right? I was being told to just let them come through. And as I let all of these repressed and suppressed emotions come through in my meditations, there would be some place after where I was just so solid and clear, and I would hear a mantra. And one of the biggest mantras I heard was, I belong here. I deserve to be here. And I didn't know why I was saying those words, because it wasn't like my parents are still together. They love me. They did the best they could. I had a very I felt misunderstood and unseen as a child, but I can't say that I was a child soldier or that it was, suffered some huge catastrophic trauma.
Yeah.
What I did, the catastrophic trauma that I had was that I did not believe in myself. That was catastrophic enough for me because everything I am requires my deep belief in myself. You cannot be a healer if you doubt yourself, right?
Yeah.
So in these meditations, I would start saying these mantras, and as I was saying them, I could feel the vibration and frequency of them changing my chakras in my body, right? Like I would have these profound felt sense experiences in my own space in a meditative state that it was like I was being healed,
Wow.
So those happened several times. And every time I would have sort of like a breakthrough moment with those, I would just start to feel different. I wouldn't think much of it, go on with my life, but I would start to notice that I had a different answer to a question about, if I was going to do a retreat or not. I started saying yes to those things where I would have said no. I started, introducing myself to people when I,
zone.
yeah, I really started stepping out of my comfort zone in ways, and that led to different outcomes, which led to me believing in myself more and more and having more data, to work with. So that's one way I really, really overcame my lack of self-confidence, my belief in myself. And then from that point, when I actually believed like in my cells that I deserved to be here, then I started seeking groups that could witness me, because now I know I deserve to be here. Now I want to know, do you guys see me? Do you see me right? Do you see me? And I found this amazing place. It's actually called Shalom Mountain. It's in the Catskills in New York. And it's basically like a place where you go and you just speak your truth in like a ceremonial setting. And you get to have like a piece of work done in front of the community. And there's a lot of embodiment and breath work that brings you into it. And that was extremely transformational. So much so that I did the training and became a Shalom leadership retreat leader.
Wow.
Mm-hmm. So those were two major things that helped me.
Wow, you are a dedicated person all the way through. Like when you decided you want to do something, you follow through until the end.
Yeah, what was the option? I asked that seriously. For me, the option was to go back to what felt really horrible, really lonely. And it was like living as a ghost a little bit. No one would have said that. If they knew me, they would have thought, oh, I was a functional ghost. But inside me, I knew that there were certain plugs that weren't plugged in. You know what I mean? I wasn't me fully.
Wow. Thank you for sharing that. I feel like even though I sometimes like when I look at for myself, there are parts where I feel like everybody look at me in this perfect or whatever functional human being that's able to work 9 to 5, whatever, and able to pay their bills on time. But inside of us, like a lot of us, I'm sure the audience as well, like there's some void or emptiness inside of us that's waiting to be for us to discover. Yeah. So
How
thank you for
beautiful.
sharing that. And also, I want to ask you more about your personal journey on transforming your pain. One thing that caught my attention is that what you were saying, the belonging. At the time, you were saying that you hear the mantra and you repeat that mantra, and you feel it, and you say it in a way that do a deep healing in both energetic and in your heart level. Did you overcome it by just do the mantra? Because to be honest, like I heard about a lot of mantra, but I never really quite feel the deep connection to all the affirmation words, because there are a lot of affirmation words. But how does that work with you, and why do you think that's different working in your body?
Well, I'm going to say that words are extremely powerful. When we speak, we cast spells. Okay. We might not feel that, right? We might not be connected to it, but we are casting spells when we speak. That said, I tend to be a very earthy person if we're going to talk in terms of elements. So I feel things in my body, I'm an embodied type. And so when I was in this deep, deep meditative state, all the blocks were out of the way. I was naked in a sense, energetically naked. I wasn't trying to get somewhere. I had arrived in this place. You call it the void that's waiting to be discovered. We can call it the 0 point field. We can call it the infinite. Barbara would have called it the velvet black void, right? This is like, there's nothing there. Yeah, there's nothing there, but it's teeming with potential and infinite possibility. And from that place inside me, while my cells were like, waiting for the order, and I commanded my body. I commanded it. I said, I belong here. I deserve to be here. And the resonance in that truth was received by all my cells, right? And they they felt at ease. They relaxed. They stopped looking for validation outside of me, and they started going like, oh, like if I'm here on this planet living and breathing, I belong here. It's just that simple. I can say it all day in my head. It doesn't mean nothing.
Yeah.
I have to feel it in my body. I have to believe it. And like, it's almost like playing a chord on a guitar, and it's like beautifully harmonic, and it's just so true. You can hear everything sounds amazing. It was like that in my body. So affirmations, even if you don't connect with them, can work. But what happens when you don't connect with them, maybe they're not for you. Or maybe you're blocking, there's some resistance to the truth of them, right? Like if you say, I am loved, and you're just like, I'm loved, I'm loved, I'm loved, I'm loved. You could be saying like, tweet-a-dee-doo-doo-doo. I would say like, what is it like to really deeply connect with the self and say them? And then you might say, well, I don't know how to do that. I'm not sure. Right. And then so I'd be like, okay, well, then the affirmations are over here. First, we have to learn how to find a pathway in to your own void, to your own core self.
Wow, found a pathway into your void. Wow, that is amazing phase, and that I never really heard of it. I heard of going into your inner self, but like we just know that, oh, we probably sit here and meditate and concentrating our body, but like, wow, there is actually a path going into that void. How was that like for you? Like, how did you discover that? Was it from Barbara Brennan School?
No, I would say that it was a mixture of my own explorations with plant medicine and with myself, with my own meditation. I think you'll hear about this in many different words through many different traditions, this idea that you go beyond the thinking mind and then you settle into the 0 point field. Lots of people call it the 0 point field. And this is a place where you are connected to all that is, because that supremely we are. You and there's no difference between you and I. We have different bodies. We may be in different geographical locations, but energetically, we're all from source. We're all the same thing. We're made of the same matter. Our bodies are made of the same carbon and water, and our souls are made from the same intelligence, consciousness. And when we let go of our identity enough, our ego enough, and we breathe into this vessel that is our body, it starts to expand and it opens up the void or the 0 point field. And there it's like the most regenerative, nourishing place, because it is pure peace. There are no thoughts. It feeds everything that needs feeding and takes everything that needs taking, right? It completely rebalances the soul. And it's the closest, I think, as humans we can get to being in source by ourselves anyways. Maybe in relationships we can do deeper things, but in our own meditative space, it's such a gift, and you can do it too. I'm not special. I am dedicated, I'll give it that, but I'm not special.
Totally, 100%. I feel like just a workout, we gotta dedicate to that in order to see the results. And you mentioned multiple times about 0 point field. I'm sure a lot of audience, after hearing all that great stuff about knowing and going into that 0 point field, they are wondering about they heard about it a lot in meditation states, but what exactly is this? Can you put it in a way that's, in your perspective, how would you describe it, and how would you go into it?
It's hard to put something that expansive into words. However, I've already talked about the peace it is, the nourishment, the regeneration, the cleaning, but it's also, well, let's put it this way. Before there was Fiona, there was the 0 point field. And then there was a creative impulse from the divine, from the one prime creator. Boom. And the light of Fiona was born. And that light of Fiona manifested, it vibrated, slowed down, and slowed down enough till it became a physical body and came into this planet in this lifetime. And there were probably many, many lifetimes of Fiona, right? Of some different version of your soul. So the 0 point field is pure creative matter. So when you can go there, when you can go back there and rest as a conscious, I'm still Jen Polo, but I've just let it all, I've just checked all my baggage at the door, and I come in the room, I sit down, and I intend, just through intention, just to be with my breath and my body. And any thoughts I have, I say, oh, that's great, but I'm not talking right now. Thank you. Goodbye. Thank you. Goodbye. I just send it away. Sometimes I see it like balloons going or clouds in the sky, whatever your method is, just to keep tuning back into the breath, right? The inspiration. And eventually over time, your brain chatter, it'll always keep chattering. It's not that it turns off. It just becomes so background that you no longer identify with it. You no longer identify with yourself as Fiona or as Jen. All you are is the breath, and you're the watcher of the breath. And once you become the watcher of the breath, you are in 0 point. There is a place where it's just, there's nothing there. But if you command in that place, you spark creation. So I belong here. Boom. Right? And my body responds to that command from that place. My energy field responds, because we are energy first before we are physical. Right? The physical emanation of us comes from our energy field. So anything we alter in the energetic form at a deep, deep level like that, the intention to be here, it starts to alter our physical reality. That could take me probably, at the height of my meditation, that would take me probably 45 minutes to get there. But when I first started, it might have taken an hour and a half. And I probably fell asleep a ton of times trying to get there, which is cool.
100%.
I wake up,
Wow.
Yeah.
You wake up, feel like taking a little nap.
Yeah, that's not a bad thing. Or you don't, or you get past this. I remember there was this kind of threshold that I was able to get through, where I would fall asleep, and then there was this place where I was like, oh, I'm just about to fall asleep. And then I would like stay very aware of the feeling of falling asleep. And so instead of going into that lucid dreaming place, I stayed with my breath and my awareness of it. And then all of a sudden I was past that place, and I became more hyper conscious, right? I just became aware of everything going on. That's kind of the 0 point field, is like everything's there simultaneously. You become a multidimensional being. You always are a multidimensional being, but you're tuned into the multidimensional radio station.
We are to zoom into this life right now. And you mentioned that you can experience that through meditation, through breathing, through observing the breath. And I also know that meditation state is a lot different than the breathwork state, where you have to feel your whole body. Because like a lot of time I found out that when I do meditation, or a lot of people, they have the same thing too, because when we do meditation, we tend to like flying out there instead of feeling into our body. Could you, in your way, to explain more about like what kind of practice we should be doing in terms of what kind of result we want, and then do we do it simultaneously at times, or like how would you do it?
Yeah, it's an interesting question. So in it presupposes that I have the answers, which I don't. What I have was my own pathway into myself. And I'm happy to share about it with you, but I want to reflect that every single being out there that is interested in finding this place for themselves will find their own way into it. And part of that is about listening to your insides, like what works for you. Some people need to move. Some people need to run. Some runners, like marathon runners, can get into the 0 point field, right? Some people, they need to have a guided visualization to go there. For me, I needed to stay with my breath and my body, and I needed to let the brain go. And I have a very active mind, Gemini moon, like there's lots going on in there, chattering all the time. Yeah.
All the time.
Lots of words. And frankly, not all of them are helpful, right? There's just, just talking. So I needed to turn that down, or just not make it the primary focus. And I really needed to. I did a lot of things like intuitively. I did a lot of things where I would breathe in, and maybe I would let my exhale come to the end, and I would just be intuit that it was like I did not need to inhale, And I would be so relaxed that I could hold that for 25 seconds before I inhaled again. And in these ways, I would start to expand my ability to oxygenate myself. And it was in those places of deep oxygenation that I started to get into transcendent states. That was my way.
Oh.
So I really wanted to let you know, and your viewers, there's no should. There are practices you can try, and if they work for you, great. And if they don't think, I can't do it, I'm failing, blah, blah, blah. It's more like, oh, this one wasn't my path. For me, it was really about the breath and about the body. And often it was about intention, like stating my intention. So there were levels to meditation I could get to, oh, just relax. Okay, that's one level. No, I want to go deeper. Okay, now I'm going to get to the level where I get my energy field cleaned. It just feels like it's cleaning itself. Okay, but I want to go deeper. So I would just keep on naming I allow would be an intention, I'd say. I allow. And just by saying that, it's I'm saying I'm not trying to control this experience. I am just here for the ride. I allow. And I bring a compassionate witness. I'm watching with love for myself, no matter what I see, no matter what I hear, no matter what I do. Those are some key components for me that really helped me stick with it, go deeper, and also take out the should, right? As soon as I hear myself saying, you should do this, I know I'm reprimanding. I'm telling myself something's right or wrong. I don't want to do that. I don't want to be right or wrong, because what if I'm wrong? The truth is there's no right or wrong. There just is. Just isness, if that makes sense.
It does. And I feel like a lot of time it's just perspective, how we look at things from different perspectives. Yeah.
That's everything. And I think that's everything.
That is. And each one of us, we have our own truth. Just like you said, we have our own way of getting into that 0 point, own path. And how would one know that they're already in that 0 point? How would you describe it in there? How did you know at the time that you are in 0 point?
Well, there's this feeling of deep relaxation and peace. You don't have to do, be, say, hear anything. There's nothing to do. Simultaneously, there's almost this pleasure that's there, the tickle of excitement. There is a tingle through the body of aliveness. Your life force is there and ready, present. Your breath is, there's gratitude, waves of gratitude can come and go. It's like pregnancy. It's like being pregnant with everything all at once, but nothing's there. So you're not following a storyline or chasing a desire. There's nothing to do. It's just, it feels so damn good to be there, to be in your expanded self. And sometimes things can come in, and oftentimes things come in that are unbidden by you. You didn't ask the question, but there's just a download comes in. And, you receive, you breathe, and you just keep breathing. That's it. It's just like another day. Right? But when you come out of that state, you can say, oh my God, I'm supposed to be on this podcast with Fiona. Okay.
Yeah. Oh, wow.
Does that paint the picture for you? Do you feel it?
Yeah, I feel it. Then probably it's I feel like I can recall some moments of me being in 0 point state where you're just describing, but I wasn't sure whether that's literally called 0 point state. Even there was a time where I was driving. It was pretty dark at night, and it's all foggy, and I can only see, I'm the only car on the road, and I can only see my car, my lights, and the road. That's it. And it was just me and my car and the road. I was driving, I was in the States, so I was driving 80 miles per hour with the, curvy, all that road.
Thanks.
It was amazing because at the time I just feel like my brain was so empty in a way that I was just so present into this state. It's really hard to explain. I wasn't having any intention at all. Maybe I should do some intention so I have more downloads at the time. But it was a great moment. Yeah.
It sounds beautiful. And you did have an intention. You were driving. Your intention was to get somewhere without crashing, right? Without fear, just it sounds like you became one with the road. Like you can almost know the curve before the curve happens in your body. You're just with it. You're in the flow.
Yeah, I'm in the flow. I was in the flow. Yeah, it was amazing. I feel like a lot of people, they probably explained that state before, but until someone like you brought it up and pointed that out, that is that state, they wouldn't know. So right now, I'll probably be more present with, wow, that is recognizing that state and getting into more of that state because, yeah, that's actually feeling into ourselves, the expansiveness of our
Mm-hmm.
consciousness.
And when you're that expanded, you are like an open antenna for all things that are your highest good. Because when we live in that place, when we can be there more often, we're basically saying yes to life. We're vibrating in a yes to life, right? And so that's like anything that's a yes to life for you is starting to vibrate in towards your field out in the multiverse, right?
Yeah. Well, this is when the creation starts, right?
Mm-hmm. Well, you are the creation and the creator. Mm-hmm.
And I remember when I was doing the discovery call with you, also your website mentioned multiple time as well,
Mm-hmm.
that embody presence. I feel like the experience that you mentioned earlier, it's embody presence, right? But can you explain it in a way that's more of when we're not in a meditation state, how can we
Mm-hmm.
embody presence? And how can one practice that in their daily life?
Yeah, that's a great question. Remember how I had to do the meditation and believe that I belonged here before I could go into a group setting and be like, do you see me? What do
Mm,
you see? It's sort of the same with embodied presence. I need to be able
mm,
to be me when nothing is pressuring me to be something else. Meditation is one
mm,
way, but driving in a car on a foggy night alone is also another. Playing a sport, working your body, going for a walk, all of these are ways in which you can practice embodied presence. And what that truly means is allowing yourself to be and inhabit all of your body by identifying with the truth that you are more than your body and more than your mind, that you are a soul, that you are a
mm,
spark of the divine fire, and that it inhabits this meat suit that you're wearing, and that you can open up that divine spark, identify with it, like know it is you. First and foremost, that's who you are. And let that flood your entire body as you're out in the world by yourself. Because it gets really interesting when you try to bring that self into relationship, right? Whether it's
mm.
like with the
Yes.
person who I'm checking out at the cashier, or
Mm-hmm,
with like a girlfriend, boyfriend, or with a mother,
mm-hmm,
father, you start to get
mm-hmm,
into like, oh, look who I become when I am embodied with this person, right? You start to
mm,
be able to track and watch. Oh, when I'm with Fiona, I feel free to be myself. But when I'm with this other person, something about their energy makes me shrink. It
mm,
makes me feel these different things, right? We have different responses to different energies. So when I'm with a client, first and foremost, I have to feel, can I be me? Can I connect in with myself? Can I illuminate my own Barbara's methodology? We'll call it the core star. We can call it
mm-hmm.
your inner light, your divine essence. Can I let that
Divine spark?
divine
Uh-huh.
spark, can I let that open
Mm-hmm,
up inside of me and be part of my body? Not just an idea, but a felt sense in my body. Can I let it be in my ankles as well as my pinky? Can I let it be down my spine? Can I really feel that spark washing through me? And then I get on a call with Fiona, and from this place, can I still stay in my divine spark? And can I start to
oh,
tap into, can I start to feel hers, right? Where she
yes.
is or isn't allowing that in her
Mm-hmm,
life. So it's my embodied presence that starts to connect with the other person. And then what happens with energy is it moves towards its highest form, right? The stronger the energy, that's the way it moves. So if you have a very strong healer, meaning they're very embodied, they're very present with somebody else who's, let's say, where I was 15 years ago, the energy is going to move towards that person and they're going to start to feel things. They don't know what they're feeling. They're going to start to feel their feelings, have thoughts, these
mm,
things are going to come up. So it starts to change their entire energetic landscape. And because I'm holding an intention to see your truth, while holding my own truth, my inner spark, it changes the landscape towards who you really are, which is a divine being, right? You're the beloved. You're a product of source consciousness. There is nothing greater than who you are, right? There's nothing greater than who I am. There's nothing greater than any one of your listeners, right? If they were to truly understand, to fathom the scope of their own creative potential and to utilize it in a way that is done through the heart, you could move galaxies, right? Our world would completely change overnight.
Wow. But as you were describing, I can literally feel like how that is. But it's just kind of an idea that I need to put into practice. So I have a question because I do practice my preach as well. So I practice what I learn.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm sure a lot of audience, they know about like being present and to stay focused with whatever situation they're in right now, whoever they're talking to right now. But how can they navigate between, because like as you mentioned, other people's energy would affect us. Is there any way that you would recommend anyone to stay within ourselves but navigate that situation? Like, I don't know how to say it, but just do we just stay in ourselves, and how do we talk to that person? Like,
Mm-hmm. So
yeah,
I think what you're asking me is like, how do I connect with people from this place if they're not in this place?
that's
And how do I
correct.
stay with myself if I want to connect? And
Okay.
that's kind of like
Thank you for
that's kind of a
expressing that.
byproduct.
Yeah.
That's a byproduct. So like if you and I are talking and say you're really committed to being in the know to life, say you're in active addiction and you have destructive tendencies and you don't really want to change yet. You still think that you're in a victim mentality. And I'm here shining my light and just holding space for you. And I irritate you, right? I say things that irritate you. You don't want to hear this. And so it's like, I can't connect with you, right? But that doesn't mean that I'm not connecting with you. It means that you're not connecting with yourself. So what's happening is I'm here and I'm also allowing you to be where you are on your journey with a deep bow. Like active addiction, let's say, if that's the scenario, this example, like I bow to that. That is that creature's choice in life, that being. We don't come here to be perfect. We come here to go to school. We're all in school, myself included. And, my daughter, she's 6 and she doesn't want to do lessons because she wants to know how to do the thing before she gets taught the thing. Because she can't handle being in the unknown around it. And I really want to teach her, like, look, mistakes are what it's about. Like, we're going to get it wrong, right? Maybe I'm going to reach out to you and try and fix you, right? Maybe that's a mistake I'm going to make to learn, like, oh, that doesn't work. Maybe I'm going to pull away from you and shut you out. And maybe that's a mistake I learned, like, oh, I don't get to see all the beautiful parts of Fiona that she is saying yes to life around. So I get to like explore how to be in connection. But first and foremost, I have to be in connection with myself. So if I'm with somebody that I feel like I can't connect with and I'm connected to myself, that's just their choice at this moment. And I have to accept and bow to that, right? I don't want to try to tell somebody where they should be because they're exactly where they should be. That's what they've chosen for their life.
That's wow, that's amazing. I feel like that is actually the ascended master's consciousness of knowing that everyone, they are perfect where they are right now. It's not a passive idea. It's actually just viewing things as perfect as they progress. We all have that progress. If we don't have that, we call imperfect during the process, we wouldn't get where we are, wanted to improve or whatever.
Which is
Yeah.
why we came into the human experience in the first place.
Yeah.
I feel like a lot of people live in that tension. They know what's possible because maybe they do connect with their soul, and then they have this messy human part, who is trying to love properly or trying to get the love they need or trying to learn properly, whatever it is. And it's really truly accepting that that's part of the path. It really is. And can you imagine if you can hang out in that effortless intention, that 0 point field, and hold the idea that everything is exactly as it's supposed to be, while not bypassing it, right? We're not going into la la land and being like, oh, people die, who cares? It's like, that hurts.
Yeah.
That hurts. War hurts, you know, hatred hurts. I feel it. And yet I bow to the divine because it's here. If it wouldn't be here otherwise. We have free will, and I bow to each individual creature expressing their free will, as painful as it may be at times, and as glorious as it is at others.
Wow, that's amazing. There's another thought that came up is that sometimes if we're not in that present moment state yet, we are affected by others. And sometimes I find myself that, oh, I'm acting this way around this person, like maybe more authentic and freely. But sometimes I feel a little bit of being a sociable person that's more of leaning into that person. So I feel like both parts are me, but how can we accept the idea that not punishing ourselves by we are leaning into that person by people pleasing or whatever? Like yesterday, I had a conversation with my friend about that being different side of us. Like we have different side of us, whether we are being inauthentic or we're just taking that different side of us to this situation.
So the question is, how do we accept that part of us, that we do that?
Or how do we view whether that is part of us or whether we are just being inauthentic? We should change or something, whatever like that, if you put it that way.
Yeah, I would say that every part that you express is a part of who you are. It just may come through a distortion. So like we have this essence that we are, our supreme light, and we shine it at the world, right? Just through creative impulse, the desire to get up in the morning and do our job or say hi to someone. And it goes through all the layers of our field. And when it gets through a distortion, imagine light passing through a lens that has guck on it or you know, dirt. It gets distorted, and there are shadows that come in and things that are bigger look smaller. And so that's how we're seeing that situation. And so to really understand on the deepest level, like when you lean in and become a people pleaser, it comes from a place, it comes from a distortion in you that believes you need to do that in order to get love, to be okay. Right? When you do that from a place that's authentic and genuine, oh, I want to give you something. I have a gift for you from my heart. You don't have any conflict with it. When you give a gift to somebody of yourself and then you feel resentful about it, it's coming through a distortion. An idea, a thought form that is a distortion, like I have to give them this so I can get what I want, or if I don't give them this, it means I'm a bad person, or, you know, there can be billions of them, right? So we have to start to mine within ourselves. Well, number one, it's okay that I do that. It's okay. I'm at school. I get to make mistakes. I get to learn. I get to just watch and be in love with myself as I learn. And so here I am with this person, I'm leaning in, I'm merging with them, I'm doing what they want. I don't even know who I am anymore. Wow. So I'm going to take that away. I'm going to go back to myself and I'm going to say at some point, like, what was going on there? I wonder what I really wanted. I wonder what I was scared of. Right. And to sit with those questions and to really have deep inquiry. And that one thing about this path is that you need to have brutal honesty with yourself, not brutal mean, like if it's ever mean, it's not the right kind of honesty. But just just truth, right? Like I really want them to like me. I'm scared of who I am if I don't, you know, and to name those things, accept those things. And then from there, okay, well, once you've accepted them, that's half the battle. That's more than half the battle. They start to lose energetic, you know, magneticism. They start to become less attractive to you to do. You start to see behind the curtain. And then you're like, oh, I give to them because of X, Y, and Z. So what happens if I try a different thing? Oh, I'm going to try not giving to them. I'm going to try telling them I give. You know, you just start trying things, getting creative, and you'll be amazed with how the trajectory of your life changes. Because I guarantee you, if you do it with that one person, you're doing it with lots of other people that are similar.
That is so true. Thank you for explaining that. So if I put it in this way, is that the intention behind it or the inner thoughts behind the action that you do. If you're coming out from a place where you just feel like genuinely just giving, just sharing, even though the action may seem the same, but it's not coming from a place where you want that person to like you, wanting to please that person so that person will validate you. Wow.
Or whatever the belief is. Yeah, there's no distortion, right? I'm sure there are places in your life where you just are like so authentically you, you know?
Yeah.
That there's no distortion there. That's the light of you coming up and out through your energy field and then into your physical body and expressing itself through speech, through podcasts, through dancing, whatever, right? But if all of a sudden you're dancing and someone's watching you and then you start thinking, oh, am I dancing okay? Boom, it hits a distortion, right? And you start to judge your dancing. So then it's all of a sudden it's the same action, you're still moving and dancing, and maybe most of you is feeling okay. There's a part of you that's recognizing that you're wondering how you look to the other person. You're wondering what they're thinking. You know, as an example, a very simple example, it starts to distort the expression, right? If you can see someone watching you dancing and just be like, hi, I'm me, and then you keep going and it never crosses your mind or you never tense up or feel self-conscious, then you're still undistorted, right? You're still having an expression of authenticity. Not a lot of people can do that. It's a lot to have people's energy looking at you and assessing you, right?
Yeah, and being brutally honest is the key to it. Key to actually like embody that presence.
Yeah, I want to change the word brutally to like because brutally sounds hard. It's more like it's like you never let go of the truth. Even if you can't know it in a moment, like if I think my truth is one thing on Monday and by Wednesday I realize, actually, no, you're right, I did do that. It's like those are still true. Each one is true because that was the depth of my consciousness at the time on Monday. Right? So to hold that with like a lot of love, it's not that I got it wrong on Monday. It's that I hadn't sunk in or deepened into myself enough to really uncover what was very true for me.
Oh, wow. Yeah, that is one thing that we all need to learn because we tend to shift our ideas with the level of consciousness that we have at the time. So I feel like probably the things that I did a month ago, it's like, why would I do that? And probably a month later, I would be like that same thing to the month like right now. So it's all about being truthful at the time at where you are right now, and there's no regret
with
for
love. Yeah, with love, right?
Yes,
I hold grace. I hold grace for myself
and embracing ourselves.
Yeah, like I allow myself to be imperfect, and that's just it. I allow myself to be imperfect, and I'm still curious. I still want to know myself as I do it.
Yeah.
I'll never leave myself or abandon or divorce myself. I can't. I've done that in my life. It's no fun. Trust me.
Yeah. And I
the
feel
only
like
other option is to double down.
And during the process, I feel like even though we are trying to improve in a way, but a lot of time we often found ourselves in a place where we're judging ourselves. So we never get to where we thought we wanted to get to, the state where, it's like I'm satisfied with myself. But it's really about satisfying each moment of ourselves.
Yeah, and recognizing there are stages of development. Like earlier I said, I was really curious and I needed answers. And then there was a time when I had to let go of my answer, my need for evidence. That was a stage of development. And, wanting to improve, that's a beautiful thing. Wanting to take yourself from one place where I'm not quite happy here and I want to go here. That's a beautiful thing. That's an intention that's gorgeous. And then as you start doing it, you might find like, oh, I can't climb this ladder if I keep on knocking myself off it because I'm not the rung above where I am. So you develop into this place where you're like, okay, I'm going to let myself want that height, but I'm also going to let myself be where I am. Right. So you start to develop this like ability to tolerate the desire to expand, the desire to up level while appreciating that I'm right here too. Here I am. I love it.
Yeah, I love it too. So, as you were mentioning, giving that example of dancing, that inspired me another question of how can one know that whether they're coming from a place where they are just truly present or they're performing?
Mm-hmm.
Like in a lot of times, like especially in spiritual community, I found that a lot of people, whether they are practicing the way they preach or they're just preaching. So how can, like, if one wants to improve, I'm sure that those people, they're probably not knowing that they are performing. But if they wanted to be more self-aware, how would you advise them?
Well, specifically in the world of energy work and spiritual work, you don't really want to perform in this world because you'll get shown in very specific ways how, that's why there's always the gurus that are falling and, this kind of thing. So I would advise somebody who's, out there doing their thing, but maybe not connecting deeply in with themselves while they do it. I would advise them to have a practice where they have supervision or a therapist who is deeply connected, who can talk with them and help them guide them into that place, like, so they have like an ally. Like if you're doing this, say you take a retreat to Mount Shasta and you leave that retreat and you're like, oh, I'm not sure if I was deeply connected to myself or if I was just going through the motions. That's a great question, right? And then there's no judgment there. It's more like, okay, you have an inquiry. You're curious. So how do you sit with yourself and ask that question? And then how do you also take it to an ally, therapist, somebody that you trust, to share that with them and have their reflections come back in, right? Have them help you find connection so that you know the difference between the two. And help you find why you might perform versus connect, right? It might be terrifying for you to show yourself, and that might be something you need to work through. This isn't somebody selling something that's not real or genuine. It's more like, oh, there's trauma there. There's something in their history that they're avoiding. So my recommendation would be to go back inside, to practice that inquiry of like witnessing what comes up when you ask the question, am I connected or am I not? To start getting comfortable with feedback from an ally, from a trusted loved one that you can speak with. And then if you get stronger in that regard, you can start asking your clients, right? Right. You can ask for feedback. And that, early in your career, that can be tough because it can be too much to take. But eventually you'll get to the place where you can receive feedback and say, okay, I'm going to take that back to myself and I'm going to sit with that. Does that feel true? Right? And then here comes the inquiry practice again. If it is true, how come? Where do I feel it in my body? What happens to my body when I receive that feedback? What is that familiar to? Did I have this feeling when I was a kid? Is it familiar to me?
Wow. Yeah. I feel like not only being honest with ourselves, but also having another allies that's deeply embodied to help us to discern. Because a lot of times it's like we are in a water bottle and we don't see the nutrition outside. We can be confused like a lot of times. Me too. For me, I consider myself as pretty self-aware already, but yet I get confused at times. So
I see somebody, and I will forever. Like I think of it as supervision. Right? If I'm holding a bunch of clients or doing retreats, I want to know that there's somebody out there that I can share my fears with, or share my everything that's human about me, my confusion, my excitement. I can share that with them, and they can hold that and the group that I'm holding. So I'm not alone. I'm never alone, right? That's in the physical, and then I also have my guides. Like I have a whole practice that I do. Yeah.
So I wanted to take our topic into Barbara Brennan School. Thank you for sharing all the experience that you went through, and it's so meaningful. From my understanding that you are currently teaching in Barbara Brennan School. And for the audience, they might not know what's the school about. Can you briefly introduce and walk us through what is this school teaching us?
Sure. The Barbara Brennan School of Healing. The Barbara Brennan School of Healing is a global healing school. So it teaches you how to practically become a hands-on healer or a remote healer, either or, as well as a personal transformation school. So it helps you work through all of the stuff that keeps you from being your authentic self in the world. The idea is that the more authentic we are, the more power and energy we're able to conduct through our body, so that as a healer, we become more grounded and connected. And so we become a better healer as we do our personal work. So both are kind of integral. Energy and consciousness are the same thing. So the more we grow our consciousness, the more we grow our ability to run energy. The school is a 4-year program, and you have to do all 4 years to become a healing, a Barbara Brennan certified healing practitioner. And then there's an advanced studies where you can do 2 additional years to become it's called ASBIW, but you become a Brennan integrated practitioner. And that's more like someone whose embodied presence is kind of influencing a session. So that's the school in general. And it's got schools in Florida and California. I am the dean of the first year in Canada, near Toronto. And there's 10 schools globally, including one in Japan. I don't know if your audience is more in the Taiwan area, but there's one in Japan and the UK as well.
Are they all in English or even in Japan?
The Japanese is in Japanese.
Oh, okay. Yeah. Wow. I know there's a lot of energy healing course out there. I heard a lot of energy course is not as long as Barbara Brennan School. For me, I personally read the book and it's a lot of stuff for sure. But can you share like what's the difference like you can take people like how deepening they are with energy healing in a school?
So the school, every year, it focuses on a different question. So the first year is all about who am I? And within that first year, you learn like basics about energy regulation, push, pull, stop, allow, neutral, how to run energy, which we're doing all the time anyways, but you learn to do it for your own body and for somebody else. You learn a chelation, you learn how to clear clouds, you learn a spine cleaning, but you're also doing these like transformational teachings as well. You learn how to become a listener. You learn how to identify your intentionality, whether it's positive or negative or effortless. You learn how to identify your higher self, your lower self, your mask. And there's creative arts involved. Barbara really believed in a holistic program, and that's why it's so thorough. Because if you're just a healer learning skills, but you don't do the transformational work, you can get into trouble later on, right? There's a lot of distortion still available. Right? And if you only do the transformational work, you don't have confidence to do the hands-on stuff. So Barbara really thought those two needed to go together. And because we're all creative beings, right? We come from creation. We are creation. She added in creative arts. She added in a professional practice, like what to do in an emergency, how to conduct a healing session, and integrative care, right? How to take care of your body and the needs of your field. So the first year is who are we? Who am I? Sorry, who am I? The second year is who am I in relationship? Right? So you take it from the I to the I-thou relationship, which is sort of what I was talking about. You first have to tune in with yourself before you can become embodied with another in an honest way. So then you go through all of this stuff all over again. And in the second year, you also you do astral healing. So you're working more on clearing mucus and taking objects out of the astral field. The astral world is where all of, it's at the heart level. So anything heart and above is like anything disincarnate, right? So you're talking about people who've died, beings that have never been embodied. That's the second year. In the third year, you focus on who am I in relationship to authority, right? So you're dealing with your relationship with God or supreme being, however you want to think about this source. But you're also dealing with the relationship you have to the God within, your own source level self, like that you are the divine. Like, behold, that statement is just intense to even say, right? And on the third year, you also learn spiritual surgery. You learn how to restructure chakras, restructure organs in the energy field. And then in the fourth year, it basically brings it all together and you really focus on Hara, which is a different dimension, the dimension of intention. And you focus on your core star, which we talked about, this idea of the divine spark, right? So you focus on holding those and giving those kinds of healings to help support people in their own intentionality.
Wow, that's thorough. And I bet there are a lot of terms that, thank God, I've read the book and I've studied it. So I have a little bit of idea what you're talking about. But yeah, that is a holistic program that Barbara Brennan School has there. Can I take it back in the beginning a little bit of what exactly drew you to Barbara Brennan School, just because of you wanting to understand more about energy healing? Or is it that you wanted to dedicate that, oh, okay, I wanted to just be a full-time healer and going forward, and that is the school and the system that you feel like it's more thorough to go into?
So by the time when I discovered the school online, I thought, oh my God, this is what I can sink my teeth into. It has this thorough approach. It feels like something real. Everything else I was reading was like 2 weeks with some person. I was like, it's not enough. I won't know what is happening after 2 weeks. Barbara's school was like, Barbara was a NASA physicist before she became an core energetics practitioner, a pathwork helper. These are all sort of like steps on her career. And then she became like a healer. And she did a lot in terms of helping the field of healing, but also in terms of connecting that with the body. She worked with all sorts of other people to help. And part of the pathwork and core energetics are in the program that we learn about at Barbara's school. But what she really was good at was taking something that seems so vast, and you get a lot of like imposter syndrome, like who am I to do that? Who am I to be a healer? She was able to break it down into very manageable steps and pieces so that you could grow slowly and steadily in a way that was natural. And she also helped you to believe that you could possibly have a high sense perception, right? This is the idea that I have clairvoyance, that I have clairaudience, that I know things, claircognizance. Some people already know they have that and they don't know how to do the grounded part. And some people are super grounded and don't believe they have this other stuff. And what Barbara did was she was really good at putting them all together. So for me, I learned from the bottom up. I came from a very grounded family, but the idea of energy work was, you're crazy, right? That's the kind of idea I would have about it. So I really needed help to believe that all of the things I was perceiving were real. I was scared. Like I didn't know, it's like reaching into a dark room and grabbing something. You don't know what you can't see. It's kind of terrifying. So I really wanted that structure to hold me and to hold my hand as I walked through it very slowly. And also that my personality is one of dedication. So I love something that's thorough. Like I love it being done, what I think of as right, or meeting all of the aspects that I could possibly think of. The school does that. Whereas other courses are they're just kind of one line, they teach you the skills, or they just teach you meditation, or all of the things aren't there. So that's what drew me to it. It felt real. It felt like it had become manifest.
Wow. You mentioned hyper sense perception. When I was reading the book, I've noticed that she mentioned everyone can develop that, like clairvoyant and all that. She didn't put it as clairvoyant, but she put it as a hyper sense perception. Can you share your experience on developing hyper sense perception? How does that go for you? And then you have classmates, right? And does everyone get to experience that development for them, no matter where they're coming from?
Absolutely. Yeah. So HSP is what she coined it. Lots of people in the world think of it as ESP, right? Extrasensory perception. Barbara called it HSP, or high sense perception. And everyone came in with differing abilities or differing belief in their abilities. And I think what was really most key to me was recognizing that a lot of the times we underestimate what we're getting in terms of information. We throw it away. So I started paying attention and realizing that there was a lot more information coming in than I was giving it credit for. And because I was supported by my classmates and by my teachers, I started to daring to believe that it could happen, that I could have this happen. And what ends up happening over time is that you start to get confirmed right? So if I do a healing on you, Fiona, and I say, oh, what did you see? And you say, oh, I saw green, a lot of colors of green. And I'm like, yes, I saw green, right? And it's like, it's confirmed. Or I see green, but I also all of a sudden feel green. I know there's a vibration to it. And I just know you want green for self-love, right? Like, so there's multiple senses happening at the same time to confirm myself. So high sense perception is something that grows the more you confirm it. And it becomes more real the more you believe it can be real, right? So that's what's the school's great about in the group environment, is that you just have a container where you can practice and practice and practice. You do, I think in 4 years, you do something like, I don't know, maybe like close to 500 healings on your classmates. So these are people that are familiar with the terminology. They know, they're just in the soup, you know what I mean? And so you get a lot of confirmation. And then I went on to become a healer. Not everybody does. Some just do it to become more of themselves in life. But I started giving healings on a regular, four or five healings a day sometimes. And I started my high sense perception just skyrocketed, right? So
wow.
It's a very interesting thing. And it's also very, there's a lot of ethics involved in it. Right? We want to be able to be really gentle and respectful of people's information, and we don't go looking for it unless we're asked, that kind of thing.
Yeah. I realize that we haven't give a definition of hyper sense perception. Can you briefly define, and can you describe your hyper sense perception? How would you perceive stuff already?
High sense perception is the ability to perceive information beyond the regular seeing, hearing, tasting, feeling, smelling, right? High sense perception takes it to the next level where you can know things that haven't been told to you. You can see things that aren't automatically available to the naked eye, like energy. You can see somebody's aura, or maybe a loved one that's around them. You start to be able to hear things, right? So you can channel. You can be told what to do when you're healing someone. You start to have abilities to have intuition. You can explore your intuitive side, where you don't really know why you're doing something, but you know you're supposed to say this thing or go to the feed. You start to become emotionally empathic. So when someone's in the room and they have a broken heart, you might feel, oh, I feel this person's sadness. And then they can be kinesthetic as well, where you might actually feel pain in your chest. Right? So those are 5 of the ways that high sense perception, 7 of the ways that high sense perception can show up. Barbara talked about it being like a cone of perception. This is what most people see. And as you go through the school, it starts to widen and slowly widen. So what you think of as normal is much different than what, say, somebody who's never done the training might think of as normal. You're just seeing this whole other band that's there, but we never trained ourselves to see it. So my high sense perception started with the kinesthetic. I really felt, remember, in those medicine journeys, my hands were bubbling and I felt stuff all over my body. It was kinesthetic in the body.
Yeah.
And then I would start to feel like I've always been able to feel somebody's emotions. Like I know when someone's sad. I have an emotional EQ, like if you're
Empath.
yeah, I'm an empath.
Empathic.
Yeah. Yeah. And then what developed was sort of my ability to hear, right? So I can channel. And the heart developed, right? So the ability to be with love, to perceive love, and to give love. All of these things started coming online. I would say now I use all of those senses. But it's not something that I'm like, I'm going to see your field right now. And it's not like a circus trick. It's usually used only with the highest of intention. It starts to turn on for me when I'm working with a client. When something's like so glaringly obvious, it needs to be addressed, like it starts to turn on and I'll be like, oh, there's this, I see this thing, or when I ask the question, right? When I ask for information, it starts to come in.
Oh, wow. I'm curious of you I think you did not only 4 years, and then with
Yeah.
all that years of studying, is there any? I bet there's probably a lot of impressive moment and story that's happened to you, or that you feel most impressive in. But can you at least like share one that comes in your mind right now? Is there any impressive story that you feel like you can share on this podcast, that's learning or healing or whatever that hypersensitive perception experience?
You're right. There are so many, and many of them are so, I don't know. They're like, when you have so many, it starts to become hard to pick one. There was one that I was thinking about in year 3. We do this thing where we get up and we have to present a client in front of the class, and to get used to talking about our clients and understanding what they need. And we don't use their names. It's all confidential, but we present the client, and then it always sort of mirrors our own healing journey in some way, right? We find out where we were or not in authentic contact with that client. So I volunteered to go, and I stood up and I was presenting the client. And this is all you have to imagine. It's an energy school. Everybody, we're 3 years in, so everybody's like very, very unified. They know me. There's a lot of energy looking at me, and I'm presenting the client, and I start feeling my legs. Like, I start just feeling really strange. My whole body is buzzing, and I don't even remember who I was presenting, to be honest, but I think it was a man. But all of a sudden I was like, I have to kneel down. And so the teacher was like, okay. So I had to kneel on the ground, and it launched into this past life experience that it's like I told you, I'm a salt of the earth type. I didn't come in being like, oh yes, I've seen so many past lives. It wasn't my thing.
Yeah.
And I was having this embodied experience of like, my legs weren't there anymore. They got cut off. And and all of a sudden I was like laying on my back with my legs folded underneath me, and the whole class came around, and I was just feeling enormous amounts of guilt and enormous amounts of grief. And I realized that I had, what triggered it was like the teacher, I had debt to pay. The teacher, I was talking about how the client made me feel like I had a debt to pay. And she was like, well, what do you owe? Like, what? And that triggered my legs, which triggered the lie down, and all of a sudden I realized I was a soldier, and my legs had been cut off, and the whole class felt the energy, and they all became my like co-soldiers. Like, I realized the whole storyline just dropped in, that I was a knight. I was a knight, a Templar knight. Have you heard of the Templar?
No.
They were like a religious organization of like people that fought the holy wars long time ago. Anyways, and I had apparently led a whole bunch of people into a battle, and it was a slaughter. Like, many, many, many thousands died. And I was holding that guilt. I was holding the responsibility for that in my heart. Anyway, so there was this whole experience that unfolded over 40 minutes in a class. And then it was time for the class to end, and I was like, what? And I had to get off the floor. Everyone was giving me hugs. They all were like they all felt it. They were all like, we are soldiers. We know exactly what's happening here. It was like we all entered into a different timeline. And that continued to unfold for days. The integration of it took months, but like for days.
Wow.
I actually had a soul retrieval where all of those thousands of soldiers that I held responsible actually were able to leave my heart and go back to themselves. I was holding on to fragments of them through a distortion, believing that I was responsible. I wasn't. They had free will. They came to the fight. They believed in the cause. Anyways, it had manifested in that class, but it also had manifested in my life as Jen Polo, where I was feeling like I had a debt to pay, like I was trying to help everybody, like a savior complex. So,
wow. Well,
it was a really intense experience.
Yeah, as you were talking, I literally feel that sadness of the guilt. Wow. Yeah, I feel like it's like our muscle memory. It's um, we may forget about our past life. Our emotion, our body remembers it. Like it just remembers it.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I would take it even a step further. I realized that if a past life comes up in that way, like where it's so physical and emotional, it's also playing through in this life. Like it's sort of like a key to help you grow in this life, you know? Like you can have an idea of past lives where it just feels like, I don't know, like an imagination. That might just be you accessing the Akashic records. But when you have this thing where it brings you to your knees and you're like
Your
having an
whole body.
yeah,
An
it needed
emotion and all that.
Yeah, it was like it needed something in me needed to crack it from a past life in order to get through it in this life. Because I didn't know why I always felt this debt. I couldn't, I was like, I don't know why. It's not like there was something I did where I killed somebody when I was a kid or something, or it didn't make any sense to me. So, anyways, that was, and you know, I know many people who have had very intense experiences like that at the school. The school's magic. It really is. It's been around for 45 years, 44 years.
Yeah. 44.
So there's there's a strong template there, energetic template. And Barbara was she was a magician, right? She was the real deal. And she wrote 3 books. I mean, she wrote more than that, but 3 quintessential texts. There's The Hands of Light, Light Emerging, and then Core Star Healing.
Oh, yeah. Wow.
Core Light. Anyways, yeah.
Yeah, and they are translated into Chinese as well. So I read it. So
Cool.
it's accessible globally for those audience are curious about it. You can start with the book, but definitely I feel like the book just only has like outlines of it. You actually have to go into the school to actually put a hands-on practice. It's so different. Yeah.
I read the book 5 years before I came to the school. And I was like, I read it in like 3 days and I was like, I don't understand, but I understand, but I don't understand. And it took me 5 years to like give it to myself.
Oh, wow. Yeah. And what's the biggest trigger? Because like 5 years or you already knew this school and modality in 5 years before you come into a school. And what's the main trigger? Like,
you know what it was? Barbara talks about creating your own life. And at the time I was working in television as a director of photography. And I thought, there's no way I can go to the school. The way it's structured is there's like 5 weekly intensives. So it's not like every day you go to school Monday to Friday. There's these weeks you need to do. And I worked in television as a gig worker. So I could get a gig, right? Oh, we want you to shoot this series and it's 6 months of my life. And if I say no, because there's 1 week that I have to go to the school, I'm going to lose half of my paycheck for the year. Right. It's like, so what clicked for me was that I believed, I started to really challenge this idea that like, is life happening to me or am I happening to life? If I'm happening to life, if I pull the trigger on this and I say, this is what I want, then theoretically space should appear, right? Like I was like, if I might like be very broke if I do this. But I said, well, this is a good challenge, right? Because if I may set the intention and I also set the intention that I want to be able to pay my rent or my mortgage or whatever. And what ended up happening was at the end, I did lose a couple jobs, but at the end of the year, I made the same amount of money.
Wow.
So I was like, oh, I create my life. It is true. So it was like, that's what switched for me. I decided to really take a risk and challenge my paradigm, my idea of how life works.
Wow.
And let me tell you, you and your listeners, you create your life. You really do. Everything around you.
Wow. That is, wow. Thank you for sharing that real life example with the truth that you're presenting. It's not only just a concept.
Yeah. And it keeps going on, right? If I want to bring in clients, I know how to do it. If I want to grow myself, I know how to do it. I just have to set the intention, right? And in that embodied way.
Yeah. Last question about the school. You explain how holistic of the school. It take you to many thorough stuff that you have to understand yourself first, and then to work with the relationship and moving forward. Is there any other difference between the school, the energy school, like the Barbara Brennan Energy Healing School, then like Reiki and shamanic work and all that? And I realized that you went, learned, and shamanic work and all that. What would you describe the difference between that?
Well, Barbara's school by far is much more thorough than the trainings I did in either of the other. Barbara's is more, it's like scientifically based. She correlated all of her findings with somebody else about how the field looked and how she perceived it. It's just a lot more. She comes from a NASA background, right? So she is a scientist. Shamanic work is much more elemental. It's like I very much connect to the earth, and so shamanic work. It was the original form of healing. Every culture had shamanism, right? That's what it is. It's just being a healer of the land. And the land is part of the galaxies, right? So we're also part of the cosmos. And so shamanic work looks a lot like soul retrievals and, helping people cross over and working with the elements. To me, it's embodying the animalistic nature. It's very much of the earth for me. And Reiki is like, I think you can do beautiful work with Reiki. You can learn it in 3 weekends, right? To become a master. Barbara's school is 4 years. What's beautiful about Reiki is that it's very simple to learn. There's an attunement, right? They give you an attunement so that you're kind of like blessed to go forth and channel love. You just channel love. And they show you like a sort of structure of how you put your hands on the body, and then that's it. Yeah. And if you do that for 20 years, you'll become a master healer, sure. Just through experience, on the job experience. Barbara takes you through in 4 years. She really like, I don't know, in Reiki, if you encounter an entity, I don't know.
How do you do it, right?
Yeah, there's no training for that. But because you're always only holding the frequency of love, most times you're just like letting something else deal with anything, right? But sometimes people will come to me and they'll say, I have a very specific problem. My kidneys don't function. Okay, well, Reiki can help you balance and charge your field. Barbara's work can help you clear and balance your field, but also go right into the kidney and restructure it and bring like very specific quantum level healing to that organ. People might come to me and say, I feel like my father who passed away last year is still around me, and I feel like he's bothering me. I feel like we're not in good terms. And we can do a cord healing, right? We can heal the cord between the daughter and the father and help them move into a healthy relationship, even from the dead. Like these are things that Reiki doesn't prepare you for. And shamanism is different. It's like you journey. It's a lot more prayer, a lot more faith-based. Although Barbara's is faith-based too, but there's just so much more information. There's a lot more mental information in Barbara's course. Yeah, I think that's pretty much the difference.
Yeah, I remember. Yeah, it's totally worth going, but it's a big commitment. So everyone, you can buy the book, read the book first, then you'll know that, wow, it is something that is worth for the time.
I will say the school offers Hands of Light workshops, which are 1 or 2 day workshops. So if you buy the book and read it and you're still like, I don't get it, go to a workshop. It's a low cost commitment, and you'll get taught by a teacher and you'll feel the transmission of some of the things she talks about, just like basic stuff. But a lot of people find their way to the school after a workshop because they have experiences that validate for them that this is the right path.
Yeah. Wow. Thank you for sharing that.
And you can find them on the website, on the Barbara Brennan. I think it's barbarabrennan.com.
Okay. And what are you currently offering that you would like to bring attention to people?
So right now I'm doing a lot of one-on-one, sort of sitting with people, working on their fields, helping them bring consciousness to their lives. So like almost like a therapist. I'm also doing group work, right? Process groups. So I run some process groups where I help people realize themselves in relationship, learn how to speak their truth, learn how to see what they do with different types of personalities and groups. I also occasionally run retreat intensives. I mentioned a place called Shalom Mountain earlier. I run retreats where I help people get into their bodies, let down their guards, and be in deep relationship with others. They're very intimate, like 10 participants. And we spend the weekend together 3 or 4 days where we go through learning how to love and be loved, learning how to really drop into what all this relational wounding that we all have, and just to see the light of the person who's in front of you. So those are the kind of 3 areas that I'm working, although I'm looking at creating a new course for the spring. So stay tuned for that. Otherwise, you can just go to my website, which is jen@jenpolo.com to find out more or to contact me.
Wow, that's amazing. I'm sorry.
I was going to say, which is how you found me. And also
Yeah.
through the Brennan School. You could find me through the Brennan School as well.
Yeah, I'm so grateful that I look into Barbara Brennan School and I found your website, and your website, I totally resonate with your background and where you're coming from. So that's why I had this opportunity and pleasure to actually talk to you online.
Yeah,
And
I appreciate you asking.
and I remember you were mentioning about a retreat. It's in Shalom Mountain. Is it in Canada?
Shalom Mountain is in New York in the Catskills. So it's about an hour away from Manhattan. But my retreats are in Canada. So I got trained there and I run my own retreats here in Canada. But they still have ongoing retreats there. If anyone American listening or anyone who's in the States wants to try those out, they're amazing. You can go on the website. I believe it's Shalom, SHALOM, shalommountain.com. And you'll learn all about what they do there.
Wow, you're so unconditional. Like usually people will start advertising their own website already. I'm like, oh, how come you're advertising Barbara Brennan School and then advertising your oh my God, you're an amazing person, Jen. And but right now, let's give the space for you. And where can people find you? Even though I will put the link down below for the audience, but where can they find you?
Yeah, you can find me at jenpolo.com, JENPOLO.com. And you'll hear, there's a way to contact me through the page if you want to.
Yeah, and I'll also put the link down below if
Thank
you're afraid to miss out. And so I have just 2 more short questions for every guest that's on the podcast. What is that one thing that you would like to tell your younger self or say to your younger self from the place where you are right now?
I think it would be something like, you are never alone, you have never been alone, and you have no idea what you're capable of. It gets better and better.
Yeah, that's amazing. And what is that one thing you can suggest anyone to create mind and heart coherence?
Well, as you know, I'm a big fan of breath work. So learning how to really breathe, to go past the chest into the belly, like belly breathing. Learning how to do that, and also a gratitude journal, I think, is really beautiful, right? A way that you find gratitude, because gratitude and breath equals coherence right away. So if you can find that place in you, your heart and mind all of a sudden align.
Wow, that's great. That is totally a thing, and gratitude. All start from gratitude to the love.
That's it. It's the highest vibration emotionally, and you are that, right? Like, what a beautiful journey we're on. No matter what's happening, we get to be here. So let's live it. Let's enjoy it.
Yeah. Enjoy the human ride.
That's it.
Yeah. Thank you so much, Jen, for today's wisdom and sharing and all that unconditional share from you. I'm so grateful having this opportunity to sit down and talk to you. Thank you.
Thank you so much. I'm wishing you a really beautiful holiday ahead. And yeah, like I said, thanks for inviting me on. It was a real pleasure.
Yeah, and thank you for the audience that if we are listening until the end. I'm so grateful for your listening, and we'll see you next time.